Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And tomorrow night, Chelsea are back in action again, this time heading to Brentford to take on Thomas Frank's side, who are in half-decent form themselves, back of a 2-0 win against Brighton last Friday. Ivan Toney in good form. It's going to be a tricky afternoon, but Graham Potter's Blues are on a good run. It's 5 wins in a row, unbeaten in the last 6. 4 clean sheets on a row. Things are going well at the moment. We're riding our luck last time out against Aston Villa, but momentum's building. We're playing well again, and there's a real good feel-good factor around the club. But tomorrow night, under no illusion, it's going to be tricky. Last season we went there. It was a really tough game. We had an Edouard Mendy masterclass, and we got out of there with a 1-0 win. I think it's going to be more of the same tomorrow night. But there's plenty to get stuck into. Covering N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, Trossard. And plus looking ahead to the game itself. And I'm delighted, as always, to be joined by Oli. Mate, thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to have you on, as always. Looking forward to getting stuck into it. Let's start with the breaking news or so from the last hour. We knew sort of a week or so ago that Kante had been ruled out of the World Cup. It was obviously widely reported that he was going to be missing for 3 months. That was the setback that he suffered in training to that hamstring injury. Chelsea have gone one step further this evening, confirming that Kante has undergone an operation on his hamstring injury. Following a successful operation, N'Golo is now expected to be sidelined for 4 months. So an additional month to what we were initially expecting. A return date then is going to be sort of set for around mid-February. So we're going to be sort of February towards March, and Kante is going to have played 1.5 games, 1 3/4 matches of football. And, it's sad to see. We wish him all the best in his recovery. But I think at this point now, the fact that this guy is just never available, I think this might point to the fact that unless it's a 1-year deal or it's a pay-as-you-play contract, which I don't think he'd sign, and perhaps it might be disrespectful to offer something like that to him, considering what he's done, I think it might be time to go in a different direction. I mean, Oli, what are your thoughts on this latest development in Kante?
It's absolutely brutal, Charlie. It really is. Kante's a player who's done so much for us. Just in recent memory, we've got, he was man of the match for both semi-finals and the final of the Champions League that we won, in 2021. And so it's really hard to see it happen for him, for sort of his level of athleticism to catch up to him as his body's aging. It's hard to see it because he's such a good guy. He seems like such a nice guy. Seems like a good leader actually in the squad. Someone who keeps a level head. There's a lot of intangibles about Kante which are nice to have, but unfortunately, if he's not ever going to play, it's kind of a mess. If you would it would be a mess to give him a 300k a week contract if he's not going to play. I'm very sentimental towards Kante, and I really am. But even now, I'm kind of starting to see myself that the writing's on the wall. His injuries aren't getting better. It seems that he would be looking for one sort of last big payout in his career, and Chelsea just aren't in a position to offer him that with the amount that he plays. Especially with Jorginho's contract talks stepping up as well. I think it's more likely than not that we'll actually see Chelsea and Kante part ways in the summer.
I mean, do you think this news today could be the defining factor in Chelsea thinking, do you know what, Kante, we're so grateful for what you've done. You've given some great service. You've been a top player. But as you say, with the amount you're available, we're looking to go in a different direction, bringing younger midfield players, the likes of potentially of Bellingham and Alvarez, Enzo Fernandez, Declan Rice. It could just be a natural coming to the end. I mean, any new contract for Kante would purely, in my opinion now, be out of sentimentality. And I've said it before, doing business based on sentimentality is never good. I just don't think it would work. I mean, Kante, for me, needs to demonstrate in order to earn a new contract that he can actually sort of go a couple of months being fit and playing games. I mean, when was the last time Kante played 2 or 3 games in a row without getting injured?
Yeah, he's not been able to string some games together for a long time now. And it's partially not really his fault. It's kind of his play style. And it's also the fact that he's so good when he is fit that managers can't not overuse him. So, so every single manager we saw it with, everyone from Conte to Tuchel, because Potter hasn't really gotten to see him play much, has absolutely run him into the ground. And now we're seeing the issues that are happening around that now. If you had told me a season ago or 2 seasons ago that actually Jorginho would be more likely to outlive Kante than the other way around at Chelsea, I would have thought you were crazy. But injuries have really caught up with him. It's really hard to see it.
I mean, do you think now? I mean, Chelsea are probably looking at it anyway, but do you think this accelerates and increases the need for us to buy a midfield player in January? Because Kante
No doubt.
not available. I mean, we're looking at it, and if we stick with that pivot system that Potter tends to go with the majority of the time, 3 positions, and we've got Jorginho, Kovacic, and Ruben. I mean, I would mention Dennis Zakaria, but it doesn't look like he's ever going to play a minute for Chelsea at this rate. But he is there and available as an option. But with those 3 options, the game's coming thick and fast. We're not really able to do much rotation in the middle of the park at the moment because you rest one, and all 3 basically have to play every game out of Jorginho, Kovacic, and Ruben. So if Chelsea weren't thinking about it, do you reckon now they're like, right, we have to bring someone in January?
I think they were probably thinking about bringing someone in maybe in January. I think they'll probably try and hold out till the summer because just for January, there's not always a fantastic amount of options in terms of the players available. I think they'll try and see it out to the summer, but certainly this injury news it's probably the last nail in the coffin for Kante at Chelsea, and it's really sad to say that. But we'll be certainly looking to bring in, God, it must be at least 2 midfielders in the summer, surely.
Sure. 100%.
One of maybe Bellingham or Rice, and then maybe someone else. I don't know.
Yeah, 2. It's got to be 2 midfield players coming in. I mean,
minimum.
To be fair,
it has to be 2 minimum.
Yeah, minimum, regardless of what happens. And I think now it's come to the stage where Jorginho and Kante both aren't staying. It'll be one or the other because there's not the room to keep them both. Plus, bring another 2 in.
There's still an outside chance they might both leave. Like Jorginho is constantly flirting with going back. Well, his agent is. He isn't personally, but Jorginho's agent is constantly flirting with him going back to Italy, for example. That's where he's comfortable. He likes the pace of the game over there. It's not totally out of the question to think that they could both go.
Yeah, no, I'm prepared for both of them to go, and I think it's at the point now where Jorginho is more likely to stay, and purely for the fact that he's actually available more and can be of more use in the squad. At this point, I'd rather him stay than Kante stay.
There's a funny thing is he's played. Jorginho has played quite a lot with sort of little nicks and bruises and injuries and things like that. So it's quite an interesting thing to see that sort of the style of play that even though he gets injured, he's still able to play his game and play through those injuries. Whereas Kante, if Kante's injured, like you're seeing half of him really, and he's not been fit for a long time. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said more about the longevity of Jorginho's game because he's less physical generally and he's less athletic generally. So maybe it's less of a strain on his body. I don't know.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, moving on to that segues us nicely into Jorginho. Obviously, as we said, out of contract at the end of the season in January, he can start speaking and agreeing a pre-contract with foreign clubs. He's been offered a new contract with similar terms to his current 120 grand per week terms. Jorginho wants 150k a week, which would be in line with Azpilicueta's new deal. Now, on him wanting an increase to 150 to be in line with Azpilicueta, I think that's absolutely 100% perfectly reasonable. At the moment, for me, he offers a lot more than Azpilicueta does in terms of the squad, in terms of his role on the pitch. He's more valuable to the team playing wise than Azpilicueta is. So I don't think it's outrageous at all for him to ask for 150k, a 30k increase. If it's a 2-year contract with an option for a third potentially, or just a 2-year deal, then I think it makes sense. And I've got no problem with him asking for an extra 30k a week. It just depends what he wants to do, really, and what the length of contract would be from Chelsea. You'd imagine that this next contract would probably be Jorginho's last big contract. So he's probably looking and thinking, if I leave on a free, I can get a big signing on bonus somewhere and maybe go and play in Serie A. I mean, Jorginho on a free has got Juventus written all over it. But again, you just don't know. But I mean, I wouldn't be. I know people are saying, we need to get rid of Jorginho and whatnot. I still think he can offer a lot, particularly from the bench when you're trying to see a game out. I think he's perfect. And we saw that at the weekend against Villa, a prime example of it. Yes, we want to bring in we want us to see maybe an Alvarez, an Enzo Fernandez, a Bellingham, a Rice. Yeah, we're not going to get all those players. It's just not going to happen. We can hope, but we're not going to get all of them. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for me if Jorginho stuck around on a 2-year deal and was used as a bit of a rotation option. I think you could do a lot worse than that. I mean, Oli, what are your thoughts on keeping Jorginho? And firstly, mate, do you think, like myself, asking for an increase to 150 to be in line with Azpilicueta is fair?
Yeah, like in the grand scheme of things in the squad, it's not really that much money.
No.
You've got like a Kante. Well, it's a little bit different when you're talking about the likes of Kante and him potentially signing on a £300,000 a week deal. When you've got Jorginho actually asking for 150k, that's less than what Mount's probably going to get. That's less than what Reece James's new contract is worth. So it's not like he's going well and above over his station, and he's the vice captain. To me, it seems like a very respectable counter offer from Jorginho, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
so I personally, I don't see how, unless contract talks break down, Chelsea really, really don't want to go for 150k a week, which seems reasonable in my view. But if they really didn't want to go for it, I think that would be the only reason that he wouldn't sign a new deal.
I mean, would you be happy for him to stick around?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree, yes, because he offers what he offers a lot of intangibles. He's got very good leadership. He's very vocal on the pitch. Obviously, he's vital, off the pitch as well as a leader. I think occasionally his what he can offer on the pitch is a little bit limited. And the systems that we play sometimes have to cater to him. But he's not been playing as much recently. And I would be much more open to a deal. I think he should stay regardless, but I'd be even happier with the idea if he probably wasn't going to play as much, which I know sounds a bit strange, or doing what you were saying, being that sort of bit part role player to come on and shore up the game, a bit like a modern John Obi Mikel. I would love to see something like that from him.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. Let me just get to a few things in the chat. Big up everyone in the chat, by the way. Guys, keep smashing the likes on the stream and subscribe to the channel as well. You haven't done so already. Kante, I mean, that would be nice. I mean, if we sign Jude Bellingham, it would be unbelievable if we could manage to pull that off. It's going to be very tricky, but
it's not quite a like-for-like replacement, but it's more or less as close as you might get, really.
Yeah. It is very good. What we got here, Texas Blue. Even if we keep Jorginho, we need two who need to be able to start over him. Yeah, agreed. That's what we're kind of just saying. Yeah, you keep him, but I still think, regardless, if we end up keeping one of Jorginho or Kante, we still need two anyway. So
yeah, neither of them are going to be playing full time. Either Jorginho because maybe it's not always tactically important for him to play, or Kante because he simply can't.
Yeah, no, agreed. I mean, whilst we're on the theme of midfielders, we might as well get all this out of the way at the beginning. The forgotten man, Denis Zakaria. A meeting has been, Nazar Cancelo reporting that a meeting has been scheduled to discuss Denis Zakaria's lack of chances at Chelsea. He's still not played a single minute for the club, so he's set for crunch talks. Could cut short his loan deal at Chelsea in January after failing to make a single appearance since moving to the Bridge. And he's been fighting for his chance behind the scenes. Potter's saying that that he's trying hard and he's waiting for his opportunity. For me, this is a real strange one. Given the fact that I know he came in on deadline day, was it a Tuchel signing? Was it the board watching our form and thinking, shit, we desperately need a midfield player? But he's come in and it's clear that Graham Potter hasn't got any intention of using him at all because he's been on the bench every game, 5 subs as well in all those games, hasn't been used once. We're really light in midfield, as I said. We've only got 3 choices in there for that pivot, and yet he still can't play. I really wouldn't be surprised if he went back in January and we never saw him play for Chelsea. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because I think this is a really strange one.
I think it probably depends on who's actually available because in January. Because I think if we do go for somebody in January, then I think it makes sense to cut his loan short. But unless you're bringing in someone like for like, even promoting someone from the youth setup or something, you're not really. All you're doing is losing a body. Which isn't very useful for sort of match fitness and all of that, even if he isn't going to play barely at all. But it does seem that Potter doesn't rate him, even though he came out today and said, there's he sort of rubbished the idea that he would, be leaving in January. Kind of managers kind of have to do that, to keep the players' confidence up. They can't say, obviously, I've totally lost faith in him, I never rated him and he's not going to play, because what's that going to do for the dressing room? And so it's a difficult one because it seems to me, in my view, he was a Tuchel signing. Came in on deadline day, and I think the owners kind of sort of appeased Tuchel at the last second and sort of went, "Oh, fine," and got something over the line that made Tuchel happy. But of course, now Tuchel's not here anymore, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was kind of like, that the board kind of just did it to do it, to keep Tuchel happy. And now that Tuchel's not here, they don't have to keep Tuchel happy. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go.
Mate, do you actually think we'll see him play?
He'll play a cup game, in my view. I could see him definitely. I think we've got a Carabao Cup game. I know it's against Man
City a couple of weeks.
I could see him playing for that. It certainly in terms of fitness and things like that. City won't be putting out their best team either.
I could potentially see him as well playing, providing we beat Salzburg next week in the Champions League. If it's a dead rubber, nothing to play for in the last Champions League group stage at home to Zagreb, that would be a perfect game to play him in.
You could see it, but at the same time, Potter's probably got a lot on his plate trying to figure out this new squad. There are going to be casualties, and to be honest, it's a bit of a poor circumstance for Zakaria, and he's a bit of a victim of circumstance because you've got the new coach who's come in and he's trying to keep the main squad happy, and then Zakaria is just kind of, I don't know, he's kind of there, but he's not there because it's all temporary because it's a loan. So in a way, Potter knows that he doesn't have to keep him happy because he'll be leaving, within a year. So as long as he can sort of string him along, it'll be all right. So I wouldn't be surprised if the only game he was going to get was in something like a Champions League dead rubber, or in a cup game or something like that, where you're going to see a lot of rotation for fitness reasons. I wouldn't be surprised to see it at all.
I mean, having said all that, he probably end up starting tomorrow night now.
Well, we put him as starting, I think, in one of our games a little while. It might have been against the Wolves game. We
put him in a starting position in a game. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put him in a starting position. But yeah, I mean, you just never say never. But yeah, I think it is unfortunate because I would really like to see him actually play just to see what he can do, because he's a good player. He was very sought after at Borussia Mönchengladbach, and a lot of teams interested in him. Man United were after him. And it just seems strange not to sign a player and just not use him, particularly when you're light in that area that he actually plays in. And we still and we don't even know if this guy could be any good for us. Like we've got a relatively cheap option to buy at about 35 million euros. If we actually played this guy and he was decent, to sign a top holding midfield player for 35 million euros in this day and age is a really good deal. So like if we don't use him, we could be just chucking away a good opportunity of buying someone who could be really good for us. So
to play devil's advocate, I mean, if you pay 35 million for him, could you get someone better but then you don't go for him because you've already spent 35 million on Zakaria. I think maybe you can see it in a little bit of a way that Bowley and co are looking towards the summer again. They've already looked. There's been a lot of evidence to suggest they've sort of been looking long term, especially with trying to wrap up Nkunku so quickly. For the attacking third of the pitch. In terms of midfield, I wouldn't be surprised if the wheels were already turning and they were kind of trying to figure out a strategy, and maybe Zakaria is not part of it.
Yeah, possibly not. And I think one thing is clear that now going forward, as he's touched on, but Bowley's looking at getting deals tied up early, with Nkunku being a prime example. I don't think we're going to see these last-minute deadline day moves anymore at Chelsea. I very much think now the model is going to be get these deals done early, get the players bedded in, and just sit back and relax. And maybe there's any outgoings on deadline day, because I think those days now bringing in players on deadline day are done. We had Saul last season, we've had Zakaria this season, and so
it's not been a good track record, has it?
It's not a good track record.
Arguably, our best deadline day player we got was Torres, and people are 50-50 on his legacy at Chelsea. Anyway.
Yeah, but he's won 2 trophies, scored goals in finals. wasn't a complete disaster. It wasn't what we expected, but it wasn't awful. Just lastly on transfers before we move on, The links with Leandro Trossard don't seem to be going away. Obvious reasons. Knows Graham Potter's worked well, and the fact that he's actually a pretty handy player. Hat-trick at Anfield already this season. I believe he's also actually out of contract at the end of the season.
That's true, yes.
So there is an option to get there. Chelsea linked, as I said, for the clear reasons. A move in January potentially could be on the cards. I wouldn't say it's the number one priority. I think midfield and certainly a backup right back option, if we can do it, are far more important than bringing Trossard in. But I wouldn't be against Trossard coming in at all. I think he's a very good player. I think he'd fit into the system well. I'd like to see how he'd get on playing with better players around him. Potter knows him. He likes him. It kind of ticks a lot of boxes. I mean, what would you think of Trossard coming to Chelsea? And would it be something you'd push ahead with in January, even if it was to loan him back for the rest of the season just to secure him? Because you always run a risk when a player goes to a free agent, or, in January they can speak to foreign clubs. I'm sure there's clubs in Italy's top six, in a top six in Spain, maybe, or even other leagues that would be interested in him. I think now we're looking at it, and Bowley's prepared to spend a bit more money to make sure we get someone.
Yeah, he's certainly an interesting option. I personally really like him. Think he's got very good sort of close control. Obviously, he's a player that Potter likes because he worked with him, but he's also very much like a Potter kind of style player. And sort of like good on the ball. Really good close control. Knows where the goal is. He's got, and like you say, like you don't score a hat trick at Anfield without being half decent. So I personally would like to see it. I think it partially would depend on the cost. I think, but like you say, if he's in his last year of his contract, it can't be that expensive, really. I think you'd be looking at 20, 30 million maximum, really, because Brighton would be going into the summer knowing that they'd lose him for free. So, yeah, I personally would have him. I think he's a good versatile player up top. The only thing that would put me off potentially is obviously if you could sign anyone any better, but that's a good situation to be in.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, to be honest, if we're going shopping at Brighton in January, I think I'd rather take Moise Caicedo. But
Brighton must hate us by now.
just because it's a more pressing position that needs addressing. But let's move away from transfers then. Chelsea in good form, as I touched on at the top of the show. 5 wins in a row, 4 clean sheets in a row. Things seem to be going really well at the moment. What have you made of it all? Because are you surprised at how much of an impact Potter's had? I'm not saying it's all down to him, because you do get a bounce. We've chatted about this before. I've spoken about it before. But with the same group of players, he's getting a much better tune out of them.
Well, I think it was pretty evident that Tuchel had lost the dressing room by the end, and players had kind of down tools a little bit. So it's nice to see the players actually sort of putting in an effort. But I think to a certain degree, I am, and I'm also not that surprised about Potter's impact, because I think we were all a bit concerned about if he was going to be able to handle the egos and things like that when he came into a big club. But he's risen to the occasion, and he's acted like he's been here for years, and he's only been here a month and a bit. So it's very, very impressive from him. He's clearly got the team playing a bit more in a way like he wants them to play, which is sort of a stylish, attractive, more style of football with the pragmatism in there to make sure that we keep winning games. And I think the players are really buying into the vision now. And so if we can keep up that momentum and we can keep that winning run going, at what point does the new manager bounce just become, Potter's a good manager and we're winning a lot? I think the key thing will be more or less sort of by the end of this month, we'll have a good idea. Like I think we'd said this before, that I think we said this similarly at the start of the month, that if by sort of the end of the month, Potter was still winning and things were still going well, I think we're really onto something here.
Yeah, no, mate, I 100% agree with that. I mean, how do you think at the weekend, obviously against Villa? We won't go into it too much, but how did you felt we coped in that first game without Reece James? I think filling that right wing back area is going to be tricky, because he tried Raheem Sterling there in the first half. It just didn't work. He didn't look comfortable at all. He wasn't involved in the game at all. Switched it up, put Aspilicueta out there second half, and it was much better. He obviously, I mean, I don't want to say he doesn't want to use Ruben there, but it seems he probably isn't that keen for it, considering how well he's played in the middle of the park and given the lack of options there, because I thought it would have been a shoo-in to start Loftus-Cheek at right wing-back instead of Raheem Sterling. But how do you think we coped without Reece James, considering we've got to cope for the next 7 or 8 games without him up to the World Cup? It's going to be tricky.
Potter's going to have to find a solution. I mean, you either revert back to more of like a traditional back four, and then you have Azpilicueta on the right without having so much of the attacking, the attacking responsibility, which might be what needs to happen. You could stick as a 3 and sort of risk Azpi there, and have someone like Mount in midfield to be able to cover out for him on the side. Maybe that would work. You've also, I know it didn't work in the game against Villa, but having someone like Raheem Sterling sort of, rather than that wing back, sort of almost like that really wide, high winger role that we saw against, I think it was against Salzburg, I think. It certainly could work. I think Loftus-Cheek there's a shoe-in, but it seems that Potter really likes him in midfield, and he's been absolutely balling out in midfield. He's been on maybe his best form ever at Chelsea. He's certainly his best form since probably playing under Sarri, and that, so it's good to see him getting some consistent amount of games where he's playing really well. So maybe Potter doesn't want to interrupt his momentum by, making him switch positions. And I don't know whether it needs to be more of a pragmatic solution or not. I suppose we'll see, but it's a tough one without Reece James. And I think it might, it'll extend into the idea of maybe we need someone in January, anyone, just to cover, because the options aren't fantastic. You've either got Azpi, who, against any quick winger is really going to struggle at wing back. You got Ruben, who's the best option, but you take a body out of midfield. You got someone like Pulisic or Ziyech, who don't really want. Same as Sterling, and don't really, and have complained about playing there before, don't really want to be here, I don't think. So, would you do that? The only other option then is recalling someone like Dujon Sterling from loan.
Or giving Dion Rankin a go, but again, that's a young guy.
Unproven, isn't it? So it's a difficult one. I think there are in this situation, there's no solutions, only trade-offs. And personally, I would get my Tuchel pragmatic brain on and stick Loftus-Cheek in wing back, because he seemed to be able to do a good job there. But if Potter doesn't want to do that, then we might be seeing Azpi in at right back or right wing back for the foreseeable.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think a 4 perhaps makes a little bit more sense. I think if we had more midfield options available, say if Kante was actually fit, then I think he'd be more inclined to put Ruben out there. But the fact that, as I say, Ruben, Jorginho, Kovacic, that's it. You take Ruben out, you have to play Jorginho and Kovacic in the middle. So it's like taking a body out of there to strengthen one position is then weakening another one. So
exactly, it just shows that how important Reece James is to our game as well. And he's almost like the keystone, as it were. If you take him out, you kind of have no fantastic options to actually choose from. I'm sure the Brentford fans will be very pleased that he's not. Won't be playing against them tomorrow.
It's clear that he's our most important player, given the fact that when he doesn't play, we're scrambling. We're kind of putting square pegs in round holes. We're just trying to make something fit, and hope it's all right going forwards. I mean, people say that who's going to come to play back up to Reece James is not going to play. They will play.
Absolutely. We play 50, 60 games a season.
It's a long season. James injury, suspensions, needs to be rested, rotated. Someone that comes in, obviously not at his level, but maybe at the next level down, is going to play a lot of football matches for Chelsea. It's not like you're coming to sit on the bench and you'll never play. You will play.
I mean, if there's the opportunity for it in the summer, if we can sort of limp through without Reece James getting injured anymore until to the end of the season, which might be a little bit difficult because it is a high volume of games. But if we can do it, then taking on someone, like Tino Livramento, depending on how he does, from his surgery that he had, would be an excellent idea, because we do have a buyback on him. He is now Premier League proven. The only question would be whether he wants to come back and play, sort of second fiddle to Reece James. And maybe to a certain degree he wouldn't, and that's kind of why he left in the first place.
Yeah.
But if he's matured as a player, probably matured as a person, I'm sure Potter would be able to talk to him, maybe see if they can work something out. And as we say, it's a long season. If there's almost no team in the Premier League now who plays every minute of every season, like a player who plays every minute of every season, it's very, very unlikely, because they've got to see out injuries and rotation and fitness and all the rest of it. And with more and more games piling up, at the elite level, you need a quality depth option in every position.
Yeah. And that's the one area of the squad that just doesn't have it. The options just aren't there. And, as much as we don't want to admit it, Reece James getting injured is becoming a more frequent occasion than any of us would like it to be. So it's imperative that we get another body in there. We have to, and I think that will be addressed, whether it's January or whether it's definitely the summer. Maybe in January if the right deal kind of happens to be available, but it needs to be there. Just wanted to touch on a couple of other players before we head into picking a team and stuff. Potter today speaking about Mason Mount, saying that he didn't understand the criticism towards him, why people criticise him. I get what he's saying, because he's a quality player. He's got all the tools to succeed at the club. He loves the club. We know that. But I think the criticism comes from the fact that we know what he can do, and when you don't see it, it's frustrating because it's there. And these sort of last 3-4 games, he's been utterly superb, and he's back to the Mount that we know. And again, it's going to be difficult because he plays a lot of football matches as well. Luckily, he doesn't seem to get injured very much, but we're going to have to rotate him at points as well. I mean, what have you made of his kind of resurgence in the last four, particularly the last 4 games compared to the previous games where he was not impacting it at all?
It's been absolutely superb, Charlie. It's been so nice to see him refreshed and and playing his game. Slight sort of tactical tweaking from what he was doing under Tuchel to what he's doing under Potter. And it's been so nice to see him sort of progress as a player, in a lot of ways. Under Lampard, he was kind of this sort of 8 to 10 kind of player who was sort of doing it all and running his head off, And under Tuchel, he sort of kind of has been able to hone his positional game, but he was kind of stuck out wide because he was very good at sort of running around a lot and his fitness was very good. Now under Potter, I think we're going to see the best version of him, where we've got this positionally aware, hungry, really wants the ball, really wants to make something happen version of Mason Mount. And that is, and the thing is he can get better as well. He's had 2 back-to-back he had a back-to-back man of the match in, I think it might have been both Milan games or Milan and Wolves, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But he could have gotten a third one if Kepa, had less of a good game against Villa, because he scored 2 goals, including a superb free kick. Did really well to sort of capitalise on Mings' mistake as well. I think he's an absolutely quality player, and he offers so much to the team when we're playing. It goes back to that old adage that we've been saying the last few seasons, is that when Mount plays well, Chelsea do.
Yeah.
And I guess that game against Villa was kind of the first example of actually that not being the case. But where he played well and maybe Chelsea as a whole kind of didn't. But it's really interesting to see him sort of rise to the occasion and take up this role and, be backed rightfully so by yet another manager. So I'm sure his detractors will be absolutely fuming today.
Yeah, they certainly will. One thing I never understand is why people that support a club actively want players of that club to do badly, just to fit an agenda that they've got. I never get it. It doesn't make any sense. It was one of the stupidest things going, but it is what it is. People entitled to do what they want to, but it just makes absolutely zero sense at all. I mean, looking ahead to Brentford tomorrow night, mate, it's going to be tricky. As I said, last season was a real tough game there. Lucky to get out of there with the 1-0 win. I don't know how Brentford didn't score. A little bit like the Villa game, just gone.
It was a crazy game.
Didn't score.
I watched the highlights of it actually the other day, just to sort of have a bit of a recap, because people were talking about sort of goalkeeping performances after the Villa game. And Mendy had an absolute worldie of the game, played really, really well. But yeah, absolutely, we were absolutely killed in that game by Brentford. And there's no, and they hit both posts. I think it was just absolutely unbelievable how we got something out of that game. And so hopefully we won't see quite as contentious a game this time.
I mean, how do you see it stacking up? Because Brentford are a decent team. I know obviously they won at home against Brighton last time out. The previous time they did get hammered 5-1 by Newcastle. They've had a couple of heavy defeats, but they seem to be doing pretty well. They've got some good players. I really like Mikkel Damsgaard, the Danish kind of creative midfield player. Obviously, they've lost Christian Eriksen, which is a big blow, but they've reinvested well. And Ivan Toney is on good form, and he's going to be a real handful. I mean, how do you see us coping with him? Because if we can keep him quiet, I think that's the big key. That shuts off a lot of their goals, a lot of their kind of threats. How do you see us dealing with him? Because he's a tricky customer.
He is. He's probably, on balance, pound for pound, probably one of the best strikers in the league at the moment. He's certainly one of the most on form. Outside of sort of Haaland and Kane, he's probably your next best choice. Maybe Mitrovic, maybe Firmino, but he's in the conversation. That's the point. And he's a really quality player. Knows where the goal is. Proper sort of striker's striker in a sort of a modern sense. And I really like him. It's so important that we shut him up tomorrow. But honestly, to a certain degree, I'm not sure we will. If I was going to predict the game, predict the score, I said a little while ago that it might be something like 3-2, where we might have a bit much for them, but maybe, our defense is a little bit shaky. I could easily see Tony scoring one or maybe a brace, and Buemo's good as well for them. So, it's going to be certainly a difficult game tomorrow, but I think, a key to it will be trying, maybe stick Thiago Silva on Ivan Toney and tell him, don't let him move.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, let's get into the team now, guys. Before we start picking a team, remember to keep smashing the likes on the stream and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It does really help me out, so please do that. I mean, Oli, I've got this set up as a back three, but I had a bit of a discussion earlier. And with Reece James missing and expected rotation, given the fact that it's a short turnaround from Sunday to Wednesday night, a big game on Saturday evening against Manchester United at the Bridge. Last time we had games in quick succession, we saw 7 changes for the Wolves match. Are you expecting to see that many again?
It certainly could be. I think it's maybe not quite as many as 7. To a certain degree, I think Potter's still trying to figure out his best team. And he's been getting results while trying to do that, which has been, a real blessing, really, because I think it's been giving people a lot of faith in him. I don't know if we'll see quite as many as 7, because I would hope that he has a bit more of an idea about what his team would be. But in terms of fitness and things, like maybe he's just really enjoying having a large squad full of capable players, and he's just sort of, exercising that and flexing it.
I mean, the first thing to discuss is the formation. Do you think we stick with a 3 or would you go with a 4? I mean, there are merits for the 4 in terms of the fact that you would play Azpilicueta as a conventional right back, and then I'd probably rest Thiago Silva in this game. Said he was struggling with a bit of hamstring tightness after the Villa game. He needs to be rested at some point, particularly the United game coming up, the Salzburg game away in the Champions League, still important for finishing top of the group. If you rested Silva, I'd be more inclined to go with a 4 because you'd play Koulibaly and Chalobah. You could have Aspi as a conventional right back with then Cucurella or Chilwell as the left back.
Yeah, who bombs on the left, Aspi sort of tucks in on the right to make a 3 when you attack. It could happen.
But with a 3, you're probably looking at Koulibaly, Chalobah. Then who takes that central role? Or do you play Azpilicueta as a right side, Koulibaly central? It's tricky. I'm not. Do you think? What would you go with tomorrow? Would you stick with a 3 or would you go with a 4?
It's really hard to tell. I think ultimately the answer is we'll probably see a slightly hybridized system. Which might see us be maybe a 4 on paper, but a 3 when we're attacking. Or perhaps even a 3 when we're defending. Where we have someone like have Aspi being that sort of right-sided wing back who then sort of becomes the right-sided centre back. I could certainly see it. It's hard because Potter's a real sort of tinker man when it comes to formations and when it comes to like you say, it had 7 changes. It's kind of hard to predict, but based on personnel available, obviously we're struggling for right back. If Fofana wasn't injured, I think it would be a different.
Probably a 3, yeah. It'd be a 3,
sure. I think it would definitely be a 3 for certain. You're forgetting Cucurella can play that sort of left centre back role as well.
Yeah, although he didn't do it very well against Villa, but he can certainly do it. But yeah, mate, I think we should just roll. I think we should roll with it. I'm sold on the 4. I think it's actually better for what we've got available. Let's
I would agree.
4.
I hope Potter sees it the same way.
Let's hope so, mate. I mean, it's a no-brainer betwing the sticks. It's Kepa, phenomenal performance last time out, and also Potter saying
it'd be harsh to drop him, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, Potter saying that when asked if Kepa was like the number 1, he didn't really say yes in as many words. He obviously went off on a slightly different tangent, but it's obviously clear that Kepa is the number 1. And mate, how pleased are you to see Kepa playing really well? Because I think there's always been a good goalkeeper there. He's had tricky moments. He's bided his time. He's got his head down. He's worked hard. And now he's reaping the rewards. And it just goes to show you can never, you never know what's going to happen in football. But I never would have said at the start of this season, less than 10 games in, Kepa will be the Chelsea #1 goalkeeper.
It's quite refreshing to see, isn't it? And I'm so happy for him because he's been an absolute consummate professional his entire time while he's been at Chelsea. He actually does really love the club, and he's a really big fan of the club. And I think he got a lot of stick for a long time, and for some of it rightfully so, and some of it no, not so much. The thing I really like about Kepa is at the moment is he's really high on confidence, and that is absolutely everything to a goalkeeper sometimes. So it's really nice to see him playing with a little bit of playing with his chest out, and maybe that was just come in from him being able to take his chances. Maybe the World Cup's coming up and he's thinking, he's got to push himself to make sure he secures a position in the Spain squad. I don't know. There's a lot of things, to it. What I really like about Kepa is in Potter's system as well is that actually he almost plays a bit like a spare defender when we're sort of passing the ball around the back. And he's been able to do that to pretty good a plume. And the other thing I really like about him, and it's a bit of a meme for Kepa because obviously the whole he's a manager didn't want to go off for Sarri incident, but he actually dictates the game really well. And if you've ever seen him during a water break or anything like that, he's constantly pointing at people, talking to people, telling them where to go, even on the bench, telling people what to do and things like that. He's not afraid to tell people what they need to be doing from sort of like a tactical and strategic sense. That as funny as it is to say this, there could be a good manager in him one day.
Yeah, but, you never know.
So and the other thing is Kepa reads the game really well. The amount of times that once or twice that I've seen it, that I've never seen another goalkeeper do this, is when there's another player behind them, they move up. When the ball is in their own penalty area, if there's a player behind the goalkeeper, he moves up to form a new offside line, which really confuses opposition players because, of course, it's the final player, it's not the goalkeeper who you need to be passing through. I think he's a very intelligent player is basically what I'm getting at. And he's really been able to take his chances. Been low on confidence up until recently, but you know what? He's back in form and I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, and he's done nothing at all to warrant being dropped whatsoever. I mean, let's pop into the centre-back partnership then. I think we're of the agreement that Thiago Silva does need a rest. You want to play him every game, of course, but you've got to rest him at some point. And
every big game in the Champions League coming up. You need to play
every game's important. United, I don't want to place more importance on some games than others, but you would argue out of the two games this week, United on Saturday is more important than this game. And you'd rather Thiago Silva be fit and rested for United Saturday and then the big Champions League game in the midweek. So for that reason, I'd be resting him. And I think the obvious centre-back pairing has got to be Koulibaly and Chalobah. Would you be in agreement?
Yeah, almost as if they're kind of the only two people who are actually available. But also, also if you pick Chalobah, we're undoubtedly not going to lose because he's still got 100% record. Absolutely unbelievable. He hasn't lost with us yet. Played almost 30 games, I think. It just goes to show, there's a real quality and a real difference when he does play.
Yeah, there is. I know it's at Fofana's expense, but I'm delighted to see Chalobah getting a run in the side and actually given the opportunity
sort of
to show
pushed out of
what
the
he can
squad
do
a little bit, wasn't he?
He was.
Unfairly, in my view. He'd done absolutely everything right. Had barely put a foot wrong the entire time he's played.
He had a poor pre-season. I think Tuchel just didn't fancy him based on that. And he hadn't been playing a lot, but obviously, as you say, you never want your teammates to get injured, but someone getting injured is another person's opportunity, and he's grasped it with both hands. He's shown how he's going to be a real important part of the squad for this season and many going forward. And I think Koulibaly speaks for himself. I thought he should have started on Sunday when he came on at half time. He shored up that right hand side Villa, and he made a big difference. So I'd fully expect him to start. I mean, we're going with conventional fullbacks. So on the right hand side, it's not even a process of elimination. It's literally the only option. I mean, I've been quite critical of Azpilicueta, saying he's a bit past it and whatnot, and he has been. I don't think his performances were very good last season. But having said that, against Wolves, I thought he was very good when he played, and I have to say, second half against Villa, I also thought he did pretty well. So I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say he's having a renaissance in his career, but I
He
think
was even quite good against AC Milan when he came on for James. You know,
yeah, he was all right then as well. Yeah,
so you know, obviously, you know, he's in the twilight of his sort of peak, in the twilight of the peak of his career. I think it's
yeah,
fair to say where he's sort of starting, his body is starting to show its age a little bit, and you know that's nothing wrong. Time comes for us all, right? But you know, he's probably. I think it's just. I think his propensity to have to get up and down the wing at speed is quite difficult. You know,
yeah. I
especially
think
when you're
he's
going to play him up against, you know, if you put him up against the likes of someone like Heung-min Son,
yeah.
for
Oh yeah, no,
example, he'd
that's
get
game
completely
over.
skinned
He's
alive.
done.
So, you know, I think there's times to play as Pilaqueta, as the club captain as well. You know, he's got a lot
Yeah,
of influence off the pitch. You know, and there's times to not play him. It's a little bit lucky because I think this game is sort of a time to play him.
yeah,
And it kind of came at a decent moment
yeah.
because he's the only person
Yeah,
available.
I'd agree, and I think yeah, I probably prefer him from the bench, but I don't think we've really got the options. If we're playing a back four and a flat four right back, then this is the only option we've got. Moving to the
Like I
left
said,
hand,
it does offer that tactical flexibility as well. Just real quick, you know,
yeah,
obviously of being able to attack in a three. You know, you have the left-sided fullback, who I'm sure we'll get onto in a second. You know, we'll be able to bomb up the pitch a bit more, and we can sort of have a base of a three because then Azpilicueta doesn't have the responsibility to get quite as so high up the pitch, which I think suits him a little bit better.
yeah. No, I would agree with that. I've gone ahead and put Carrera in. I know he didn't have a good game on Sunday. I don't think Ben Chilwell had a particularly good game on Sunday either.
Neither of them played well.
Neither of them played well. But I think in a flat four, there needs to be rotation. Chilwell played a full 90. Cucurella only played a half. You got United on the weekend as well, which I think Chilwell will probably get the nod in. It's really a toss of a coin here, but I just think Cucurella being slightly fresher and kind of wanting to redeem himself, I think I'd personally go with that option. I mean, there's not much in it, but would you agree with that, Ollie, or would you be inclined to stick with Chile still?
I mean, like outside of it being a tactical choice to choose Cucurella for Man United, it's going to be Chilwell, you know, unless you know that if there's a matchup that Potter thinks is particularly favourable for Cucurella on that left hand side against Man United, I think we would probably expect to see Cucurella tomorrow.
Yeah, I would agree. I think an opportunity to redeem himself. I mean, I've seen a bit of like kind of people like criticizing his performances for Chelsea since he's been here. I was like, hang on a second, he's actually been really good.
And he's only been here all of 10 seconds.
Yeah, and he was poor. He was poor against Villa, 100%. But he's been pretty good other than that. So I think the criticism coming his way is totally unwarranted.
And I think bear in mind as well, a lot of the times he has played, you know, I know he does play that left centre back role, but he does prefer the wide game. You know, like really bombing forward, and that's where you get a lot of his what he brings to the game is you know is in what he can bring offensively. If you're playing him at centre back, obviously that's going to be limited, and so you know maybe we'll get a chance to see what he can do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, moving into this midfield, we're going with a three. I personally feel that Kovacic needs a rest. He needs to be rested. So would you go Jorginho holding? Or would you go Ruben in this number 6 position and then have perhaps like Mount and Gallagher playing as 8s? Or I mean, I would probably go Jorginho here, play Ruben and Mount, and I might play Gallagher like as off the right side.
Yeah, like he did in one of the other games recently. I can't remember who against. He had a very good game.
Would you be more inclined to go with that?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think sort of you got to be looking at Jorginho in that sort of defensive role because there's not really much like he just simply doesn't have the legs for being further up the pitch.
No.
So if you're looking at that, then you're definitely looking at a midfield of Mount and Ruben. You know, just because God, to a certain degree, that's kind of our midfield. That's who's available. Yeah. You know, you could play Kovacic, but really you might want to save him. You know, he might play half an hour Kovacic, but you know, I think in the starting 11, I think you probably end up seeing Loftus-Cheek. I think, you know, Loftus-Cheek and Mount is a good partnership for this game against Brentford as well.
Energy and physicality in there.
That's exactly what you need against a team like Brentford, who are really well drilled, really well organised. You know, to be able to actually get something out of the game.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I actually like the look of that midfield on paper. It looks good. It looks like it's got a nice
It looks
balance
well
to it.
balanced. Yeah, it
It
looks
does
like
look
it's
well.
got everything.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I think, yeah, as you say, Kovacic needs a rest again. He's got that knee issue that, surgery's being put off. He'd be desperate to be fit for the World Cup. And we need to manage him as well because he's not exactly got the greatest fitness record either. So we've got to be careful because we can't afford to lose him. So I think it makes sense. Jorginho didn't start against Villa, so it would make sense for him to start in this game. Mount's going to obviously play, even though he does need to be rested at some point. I know he only played a half in the San Siro, so he got a bit of a rest there, but there's going to be a time where Mount does need to be rested. Loftus-Cheek, I think, is in great form. And that shout we had last time you were on, mate, about Loftus-Cheek potentially going to the World Cup, I think it's gathering some more momentum.
It's nice to see, isn't it?
I'd be disappointed if he didn't make the squad now.
I mean,
I really
I know.
would be.
I know it probably sounds a bit like a meme as well, but there's an outside chance of him going because he's such a utility player.
As a right wing back, yeah.
He could go as wing back. With James injured,
Walker injured.
Alexander-Arnold is a doubt.
He's not fancied by.
Yeah,
Southgate doesn't fancy Trent at all.
Yeah, and then you, like you say, you got Walker out as well. So actually, if you're looking at right backs, despite England having an absolute plethora of excellent right backs, for the World Cup, we're looking a bit thin in that position. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to actually take Ruben, and he's played wing back, he knows what to do.
Yeah,
and then he offers utility in the middle as well. So I would love to see him on the plane personally.
I would love to see it as well, but I just don't know if it's going to happen or not. But yeah, I'm liking that. I think it's well balanced. It looks good. This right side, I know it's kind of put as a right wing, but it's not really right wing. It's like sort of a right 10. It's like an inside forward position. But I'd love to see Conor Gallagher start tomorrow, and I think he deserves it. I thought he had a really good impact off the bench against Villa on Sunday. He was very good against Wolves. And Potter's got faith in him. The fact that he turned to Conor Gallagher at half-time in the San Siro over more experienced players like Christian Pulisic is a real nod of faith in his direction. And when I spoke to you last, mate, we were both in agreement that, Graham Potter coming in as manager was one of the best things that could possibly happen for Conor Gallagher. And I think it's shown that he's playing hard at the pitch, he's getting opportunities, and he's playing much, much better. Would you be looking to start him tomorrow night? And do you think it's right to put him in that sort of right forward position instead of playing as an 8?
I think he'll probably play a bit of a slightly sort of funny, maybe a bit more of a free roam role. Maybe as Mount goes forward, he comes back, or Loftus-Cheek goes wide, or whatever. But I think it's good. I'm really enjoying, his general play under Potter. He's got a lot of faith. He's playing with a lot of confidence after a really shaky start to the season where he was playing out of position and was trying a bit too hard. But now, you're really starting to see him get comfortable in the team, and it's really benefiting us. I think he's been excellent. And actually, the other thing about Gallagher that is not always spoken about because of his energy and his dynamism and his pragmatism and things like that, is he's actually quite good on the ball, and he's an excellent crosser of the ball. I think it was against Wolves specifically. I saw him on that right hand side whip a few balls into the box that were absolutely brilliant. Really, really, like if the right sort of run was made, easy goal. And so I'd happily see what he has to offer on that right hand side.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I really want to see him push on even further. I think he could have a really important role in this side going forwards. And I'd love to see him and Mount starting in the same team as well. Just think energy, so much energy.
You're going to run the team ragged that way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, moving to the left-hand side, normally it'd be a shoo-in for Raheem Sterling, but he's not been rested much recently. And I have to say, his form in the last 2-3 games has not been great. It's not been up to the standards we kind of expect. And Christian Pulisic came in. I can't believe I'm really championing for Christian Pulisic to start for Chelsea because of what I said about him in the past. And, I'm happy to say that, you can be wrong about things, although I still stand by what I said because I feel it was right at the time. And I still feel overall he's been underwhelming in his Chelsea career. But the fact of the matter is that he started against Wolves. He did really well. And then he's not been seen on the football pitch since, which I think is really surprising given there's 5 subs and whatnot. He has to start this game, surely, because,
I think it's pretty likely, isn't it? Like,
Well, you say that, but I mean, I would have thought he would have started against Villa, and the fact we haven't even seen him on the pitch since Wolves.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe likely is the wrong word. Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. Just be, for pure squad fitness purposes, give Paul Raheem a break. If you've got, and I actually quite like that setup with Cucurella, Mount, and Pulisic on that left hand side. Mount and Pulisic combined really well against Wolves, I thought actually, and Pulisic played really well and got himself a goal. I think it's maybe it's his turn. Like for lack of a better option, I suppose you could maybe play, if you really wanted to, you could play Aubameyang down that left hand channel or something. But I don't think that's really the right.
Going to happen. Yeah,
it doesn't seem like the right sort of play, and to a certain degree, like you say, Raheem Sterling maybe not doing the best. I could see Raheem playing, just on the basis that if everything else was correct with this team. The team's quite young. Outside of Aspi and Jorginho, and maybe Koulibaly as well, the team is pretty young.
It's not a lot of experience. Well, there is experience, but
there's a little bit. But yeah, like I think maybe experience, maybe not wisdom. And so if you throw Sterling in there, maybe it's a little bit more balanced from that perspective. But I'm happy to go with Pulisic.
I think he does deserve to play. I mean, he's not done anything wrong. I don't really know why he's not really getting an opportunity to show what he can do. But let's round that out. I mean, centre forward position for me, it's not going to be Kai Havertz. I thought he was terrible against Aston Villa, really poor. I don't think he deserves to start this game. Aubameyang again, I thought was poor against Villa, but you know what you're going to get with Aubameyang. If you don't give him anything to work with, then like it's gonna be a tricky day. You've got to supply him with service.
Yeah, if you don't feed him, he's not going to get anywhere.
No, exactly. So I mean, whilst he was poor against Villa, it's not all his own fault. I've got to be perfectly honest. I did criticise him for his Villa performance, but it's not all down to him. I'd love to see Broja start. I was disappointed that he only got 2 minutes on the weekend. I thought that was, I don't want to say disrespectful, but what are you going to do with 2 minutes on the pitch? What can you do? I mean, I don't know if he even touched the ball, or if he did, he would have only touched it once or twice. This would be a good game to start him, but I mean, I just don't know if I can see it.
You know what? I actually can see it.
Yeah,
I think, to be honest, I think Havertz or Aubameyang. Havertz is probably more likely. Even though he played against Villa, I think Aubameyang's probably going to be saved for Man United. That would be my view. So if you're looking between Havertz and Broja, Havertz hasn't really been setting the world on fire this season. It's been the story of Havertz where he's been good in pockets and good in moments, and some big moments as well. Important, but it's not quite clicked for him yet, and I'm not sure he would benefit that well against a no-nonsense sort of defense like Brentford have, and like where they defend compact and they defend as a team, as a unit. It makes more sense to me actually to give Broja a chance, and I'd love to see it because I think he's got a good chance of making something really happen there.
I mean, I agree, but would you think that a Gallagher, Pulisic, Broja front three is lacking a bit of experience?
Well, because that's what I was thinking ahead towards when I was thinking about Sterling at left wing instead of Pulisic. But I don't know, if you're good enough, you're old enough, I suppose.
Let's go with this, because
I'd like to see it.
If he's not going to start this game, when is he going to start? Because he's not going to start against United. He's not going to start in that Champions League game against Salzburg. And he probably isn't going to start the following game against Brighton away either.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
And then he won't start. And then he won't start against Arsenal after that. And then you think the next game he possibly could start is City away in the Cup, and that's never an easy game to get your first start in either.
Yeah, I think I think Aubameyang might start, Havertz might start, but I think the idea is Broja should.
Yeah, I agree. Broja should start, but I don't.
I think he'll certainly, at the very least, come on. I think we'll certainly see him play significant minutes.
Hopefully, he gets more than 2 minutes, because I just thought that was a little bit unfair, really. But yeah, I mean, that's the team. I think a back four is better to go with tomorrow. I think even if it starts as a 3, I think there'll be an option for it to switch to a 4. It's very fluid under Potter. We do see multiple systems per game. But looking at that, I quite like the look of that. I think the midfield's really well balanced. Yes, you could perhaps argue that there's a bit of a lack of experience in the attack, but there's plenty of quality and talent in there. I like that. And I think if that team were to start tomorrow night, I wouldn't be disappointed. And I think it would be more than good enough to get the job done. I mean, Oli, what are your thoughts then? Lastly, score prediction for tomorrow. Are we going to make it 6 wins in a row in all competitions?
I'm gonna say yes. I think we're gonna make it 6 wins in a row. I think the Graham Potter's magical blues will continue flying their broomstick. Up and up and up. I think we're going to see a 3-1 or 3-2 victory, because I think the likes of Mbemo and Ivan Toney up against the likes of Chalobah and Aspi on that right-hand side of defence is going to be quite a challenge for them. So while I would like to think of us getting a clean sheet, I'm just not sure I see it happening, especially with how relentless Brentford can be in getting balls in the box.
Yeah,
So I think I'd probably see something like a 3-1 or a 3-2. I think we will have too much for them. I think we will win, but it will be a hard-fought game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it'd be nice to get a 5th clean sheet in a row, but at some point, a goal's going to go in. You can't just keep going on without conceding. So I do think we'll concede tomorrow night. As you say, they put a lot of balls into the box. Tony's going to be a nuisance. It's going to be hard to deal with. I think we probably will let one in, but I'm confident that we can keep the winning run going. I think we've had a few goals in us recently, which is something you don't expect to say as a Chelsea side, because they've been few and far between in recent times. But we are scoring a lot more goals now than we have done in the recent past. I'm going to go
goals from all over the pitch as well.
Exactly,
from lots of different players. I think we're one of the teams with the most goal scorers,
the most different goal scorers.
Yeah, so it's really good to see that. It means everyone feels like they can get one, so everyone's up for it, sort of thing. You do worry about if your team is too one-dimensional, playing through one player all the time. Sort of like the Haaland issue at City. If it's not his day, does City win? We saw against Liverpool, it didn't happen. So yeah, I like that we've got a lot of different sets of different types of goal scorers. Everyone seems to be really capable of striking the ball. Even the likes of Broja, who's got his first goal recently. Even the likes of Ruben can get one. Chilwell can get one. All over the pitch, we've got goal scorers, and so that makes me confident for tomorrow. That makes me feel like we could nick one from a corner. And I think if we score first tomorrow, it might be an easier game, and if we don't, it might be a harder one.
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, I think we will keep it going. It's going to be a lot tougher than the Villa game. I think in some ways it could be tougher than the Man United one on the weekend. I know that
in a lot of ways.
I know that sounds strange, because obviously United are a better outfit than Brentford are in terms of quality.
On paper, right?
I know Brentford pumped them 4-0 at the Brentford Community Stadium, but I mean, I honestly do think, for those reasons we've given, this I think is going to be a bigger challenge than Man United on Saturday. Which I know it sounds mad. I know it sounds mad to say that.
There's an outside chance our lineup is totally wrong.
Of course, yeah.
And Potter thinks the same. And he actually goes with more experience because he wants to get that win over the line. And then against Man United, maybe it's a bit more of an open attacking game, and we see what happens. But I don't know. It's certainly going to be a lot of running. It's going to be making sure you do the basics right, because otherwise Brentford will punish you. And we saw that what they did to Man United earlier in the season. They are a punishing team if you're not on form.
No, mate, 100%. I mean, that seems like a good point to round out the stream. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it as always. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Guys, make sure you follow Oli on Twitter as well. I've linked both his accounts in the description below, so go and give those a follow for some great football content and just great football opinions in general. From myself, on your way out, please do smash the likes on the stream. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. We're heading towards that 2K mark. We are slowly getting closer, but every new subscriber does help. So please do subscribe to the channel on your way out. I will be back tomorrow. I'm going to Brentford game, so I will be back tomorrow with a match day vlog. There won't be any player ratings after the match because I'll be back too late probably. That might change, depends, maybe. Maybe player ratings, definitely match vlog. If not, there'll probably be some player ratings on Thursday evening. And yeah, and I'll catch you all then. But yeah, guys, make sure you stay tuned for the match day vlog coming tomorrow from the Brentford Community Stadium. But yeah, guys, until then, smash the likes on your way out, subscribe to the channel, catch you tomorrow, and up the Chelsea.